Welcome, everybody, to this Ward Auto Fast Chat video interview with Ernst & Young LLP, or more commonly known as EY. I'm Stephen Bell, Chief Analyst, Automotive Connectivity with Ward's Intelligence. I'm joined today by Philippe Smoker, our e-mobility leader for EY Americas Automotive. Philippe is a partner with EY and has over 23 years of experience in business strategy transformation, electrification, and IoT connected vehicles and enterprise fleet management services in multiple global leadership roles. As the EY Americas Automotive e-mobility leader, a technologist and an innovator, he helps clients identify and respond to challenges and opportunities emerging from the electric mobility transition. So welcome, Philippe. Nice to have you with me.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure.
So without doubt, the automotive industry is going through a transformation with a shift to battery electric vehicles and lots of new technologies being leveraged by existing and new players. Can you talk a little bit about the current state in the EV industry and how you see the outlook for BEVs, as we call them, be it battery electric vehicles or ICE and internal combustion engine demand over the next 20 to 30 years, and specifically, I guess, in the US a little bit?
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. It's a great theme for sure. As consumers, as folks who are, professionals within the automotive industry, it's obvious what's happening, right? The auto industry is witnessing a paradigm shift with a lot of favorable e-mobility policies, tons of new EV model announcements from OEMs. And, as they go through their electrification of their product lineup, we're seeing as well as a lot of consumption patterns that are going to be changing going forward. So the industry is emerging with a lot of new business models. As a matter of fact, we issue once a year something called the Mobility Consumer Index Study, where we interview a bunch of consumers from different regions and territories. And what we were extremely surprised to see is the growth of interest in EVs overall, and that's including PHEVs, which is the hybrid plug-in hybrids, as well as battery electric vehicles. We've seen a 3x growth from 2022, from 20% all the way up to 52%, which indicates that folks are waiting for additional education. They're trying to understand the whole range anxiety, if that's going to be a problem or not. And what we've seen is OEMs trying to respond with different battery sizes, different trim levels for vehicles that can, address those consumer needs. The demand is expected to accelerate even further. We do modeling at EY, something called Mobility Lens Forecasts, and it's telling us at this point in time that by 2030, we're going to see EVs overall, PHEVs, and as well as BEVs, surpassing ICE, which is internal combustion engine vehicle sales in the major markets, including US, China, and Europe. So what we're seeing is a tremendous growth. We're seeing a point of no return. Not too long ago, we saw the 5% change in the United States, meaning 5% of vehicle sales being battery electric vehicles. And based on prior knowledge and prior markets maturity, like Norway and some of the European countries, we see that once you pass that 5%, there's no return anymore. You just go through that inertia and you start to grow. So definitely a very exciting time. Totally a paradigm shift, and I think it's a point of no return in the automotive industry.
It's certainly, the index is showing it, our own research is showing it as well, and it's a very attractive market, but there's a sort of significant number of new entrants coming into the industry as well. So what are the biggest challenges for the players coming in?
There's several challenges. I think I'm going to mention a few that I don't believe they're in any specific order, but definitely the first one that comes to mind is establishing a brand value. I think one of the greatest strengths that OEMs have is their brand value. They possess trust. It's been, a century in the making for some of them. Establishing that brand takes time, takes a lot of marketing effort, and marketing means dollars. It means, educating people in new ways of doing things. Tesla went through 10 years of its own process to get to the point it is, and they banked a lot into a new, customer experience, which I think is the second point I would say. That needs to be a key differentiator for EVs. EV only type of companies, they do face major challenges because at the end of the day, they have to deploy aftermarket services that are, somewhat, comparable to what consumers would find from big brands. And that distribution logic just doesn't exist. It requires a tremendous amount of capital. And so the repair, maintenance, and infrastructure, although it's less complex than the ICE, infrastructure, still possesses a lot of complexities and immediate challenges for the new entrants in the BEV space. Other points like production strategy, I think, EVs do have less parts compared to EV, but at the end of the day, they also require lots of technology and software to be on top of that. And I think that production component, and when you think of hardware coupled with the software side of the house, if you don't have the right volume as those large OEMs have, what you tend to get is off-the-shelf products from the partners that you select. And that off-the-shelf, call it a limitation, somewhat impacts your design, your ability to do what you need to do in the marketplace, which then affects the kind of quality and the experiences that you want to deliver to your client as well. R&D capability comes out as another very important component. I mean, we see, the amount of power that an OEM has as they transition from the engineer on the ICE engines to the electrification side of the house. I mean, this is that alone, and the partnerships they have with Tier 1 definitely creates walls for new EV entrants to come in the marketplace and allow them to interject, allow them to have a voice with the Tier 1 and not be second or third in the communication chain. So they, instead of developing their own trends and their own needs, they're probably going to be taking, some of them are going to be taking some of what's already established as standards. And as you know, the automotive industry takes a little time to get changes done. And so that's probably one of the challenges. I think a couple more things. I think supply chain expertise, as we think about battery and the battery value chain. I mean, OEMs are experts in the supply strategic sourcing side of the house. They've been working with mega providers and Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 suppliers for many decades, and to master that science is difficult. And so for a new EV entrant, even those that might be in the upfitting industry today on the fleet side of the house, as they come into this space, doing that supply chain, component vendor management, working strategically with some of the suppliers, traditional OEMs already have an established supplier base. So they too are co-investing, co-creating together. And that is definitely another challenge. Just a couple more points. I think talent is difficult too. I mean, it's already very difficult to hire the right people these days. We all experienced this post-pandemic, the kind of, the challenges with, just finding the right talent for your company, especially in a space that's new. So finding the right people with the right skills these days, it's definitely a very difficult choice to do. And again, that brand component with a large OEM tends to attract potentially folks coming out of university, folks that, have an opportunity to help develop a specific product. And I think new entry startups do have that challenge as well. How do they attract the right people, and how do they scale as well could be a potential challenge. I think those are some of the major challenges that comes to my mind in terms of barriers to entry, if you will. But there's probably a few more, if I had to say, Steve.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think in what you've really done is dimension the dynamics of that paradigm shift for both sides, for the OEM and also for the new entrant, but also for the supply chain and that ecosystem that's going around. If you had to sum up, what you believe the top areas for manufacturers to focus on whilst trying to succeed in this changing market, what would it be?
I think when I look at established OEMs, I mean, we know what they're going through at this stage in time. Most of them are trying to rationalize their product portfolio on the combustion side of the house, get out of markets that are not as profitable as used to be, so they can, reap the benefits of having a little more oxygen to fund the transformation, which continues to be a major challenge, right? I think one of the things that we're seeing EV OEMs or pure EV OEMs focus on is something called flexible manufacturing, right? So companies like Arrival and some other ones are really pioneering new manufacturing modes of doing things. Instead of using large components, they're now thinking about 3D manufacturing, 3D printing, which can allow a lot more rapid type of conceptualization to product to go to market, and cutting a lot of overhead as they do that as well. I mean, as you think through meeting the ever-changing customer demands. I mean, a lot of the OEMs right now, the established ones, they need to catch up on the technology side of the house. I mean, those that have experience in the vehicle, like Tesla, for example, they know that the vehicle truly is a technology platform. A lot of bells and whistles, a great mobile companion app, and the experience that goes end to end is well cut, right? It's well defined, it's well designed. And especially when it comes to the charging side of the house. So if you think an EV and the integration to the charging network in a, call it a seamless and very useful way, is one of the areas that we feel the OEMs need to be focusing on when they're competing with EV only players. I mean, if you just think again, just on the technology side of the house, the new entrants will have the latest technology. They understand that the product might not be the actual wheels or the engineering behind the wheels, but it's definitely the experience that goes inside of the vehicle. There's a lot of new discussions about what the vehicles are going to be looking like in the future, but the reality is people will go for technology first. What we thought was, one of the major reasons to buy an EV, close to the sustainability, low emissions, all of the good stuff. What we found in other surveys is that people really like the technology. The technology seems to be what triggers them to go into these new latest, types of vehicles, because they can experience that design, that component of the design. I think, overall, there's also, challenges around investment. I think large OEMs do face that. I mean, as they come out to market, one of the challenges, can they make that turn? Can they do this in a way that is profitable to them? I mean, most of them are hemorrhaging money at this point in time to be able to do what they need to do. And so continue to find support in call it the public markets, right? For equity market, for example, continues to be a challenge because, the valuation of these new EV players compared to established OEMs, many would say it's ludicrous, but this is what the market's willing to pay for that sort of market cap. And so large OEMs do face this challenge, is how do they, continue to move the ship, but at the same time make the turn that they need to make to continue to invest in this transition process. So it's a very interesting place. At this moment in time, there's a feeling that the barriers to market entry in EVs are still somewhat low. And when we talk to our clients, we talk about logistics, electrification. We talk about strategies around electrifying, their vehicles or sustainability goals and things like that. The first thing they will say, well, are there any vehicles to buy? Right? Can I actually do this at this point in time? And what we're seeing is OEMs are coming out with many models. People just don't realize. And this is interesting because at one point in time, there's going to be several options. What we want to see, though, is instead of just focusing on the consumer side, we are looking to get more focus on the commercial side of the house. And this is a whole nother discussion for sure, as we think about, trucks and we think about Class A, Class 2s and, electric vans. We saw a recent announcement from one of the EV startups with another very large OEM in Europe as they produce their electric vans. And so the market started to see a lot of acceptance for these products. So it's early to see who's going to be the winner at the end of the day. But I think at the end, these partnerships make a lot of sense as well.
It's fascinating. I think you've really sort of captured the multiple dimensions and the complexity of that transformation that's occurring at this point of time. So Philippe, thanks very much for your time and for joining me on this Ward's Auto Fast Chat. You provided some great information and fascinating insight on this important, and I think probably one of the most fascinating emerging markets there is. So thank you for your time.
It's a pleasure. It's a great topic. We'll love to come back and talk more. Thank you so much.
On behalf of EY and Ward's Auto, thank you to our audience for spending time with us, and see you again next time on another Ward's Auto Fast Chat.
Thank you.